Welcome to A Better Black America TV on YouTube. We got to talk politics today because God's people shall not perish due to the lack of knowledge. Now, the president put out a post on his Truth Social, and I'm watching the mainstream media. I'm watching liberal media. I'm watching these the Shade Room and these other outlets that are basically trying to take away how lit America is right now. Now, I'm gonna be real quick with it today, okay? And we got to talk about it. Okay, so it costs you nothing. Hit that like, hit that notification, hit that subscription because we're going up. And as you can see, things are changing. But, you know, in the particular post that the president put out, it was in regards to the Smithsonian Museum. And I saw the entire post that the president put out on his Truth Social account. And then I saw a snippet of it get shared and go viral on all the social media outlets and individuals reposting it. And it's talking about how the president have an issue with slavery. And, you know, I've debated on my Facebook page and people were chiming in and, you know, talking about the parties are switched and all of this. So I'm saying is they playing to this low drum, this low vibration. But I got to keep it 100 with you. So I'm going to go ahead and share it with you today. And then I'm going to basically get me a check today because the president going to have to break bread. Because you got black men out here having to be your press secretaries to letting the black community know that this is spin, this is propaganda, and all these organizations are with it because they're not only anti-Trump, they're anti-American. So I'm going to go ahead and read the entire post for you. Let me go ahead and pull it up. Okay, let me see here. Here's the entire post. Now, the entire post is here. Let me see if I can actually get it to, let me see here. Okay. There we go. That's the post right there. So bear with me. So here's the post. And I'm going to go ahead and read it, and I'm going to stop where the mainstream media stopped, okay? I'm going to go ahead and stop where the mainstream... Now, the mainstream media had it at... Okay, not the mainstream media. I saw this on Facebook, and somebody just shared a snippet. It's a full paragraph, but this is what it basically said, and this is what got black people in an uproar and tripping. You know, even family members talking about, oh, Trump be lunching. Yeah, okay. Now, on Trump's Truth Social, it says... The museums throughout Washington, D.C., but all over the country are essentially the last remaining segment of wokeness. The Smithsonian is out of control, where everything is discussed on how horrible our country is and how bad slavery was. Stop right there. I saw an individual just post that, okay, how bad slavery was, and they stop right there. But the continuance is how bad slavery was and how unaccomplished and downtrodden it has been. Nothing about success, nothing about brightness, nothing about the future. You know, we are not going to allow this to happen. And I have instructed my attorneys to go through the museums and start the exact same process that has been done with the colleges and the universities, where tremendous progress has been made. This country cannot be woke because woke is broke. And that's what he said. And woke is broke is in bold letters. Okay. We have the hottest country in the world, and we want people to talk about it, including our museums. Wow. And like I said, there's no way I could do something if my spirit won't allow me. You know, so I'm in supportive of the president. The country is hot right now because over the weekend, you know, he met with Vladimir Putin, had the flyover. Okay, and they were had conversations. They jumped into the beast and took a ride and had a conversation, and then the European Union and Zelensky started tripping. So since the president had a personal meeting with Vladimir Putin and talking about ending the war in Ukraine, and their negotiations and talks on a daily basis, because of that, the European Union got nervous, because if Trump hooks up, or if the United States and Russia, come together, then the European Union is null and void. They will have no power. So they started tripping. So Trump told them to pull up. So when I say this country is hot, it's hot. Because if you did not know, the European Union, they pulled up. You see the picture behind me? They pulled up. And if you don't know, that's Zelensky sitting right here with the entire European Union sitting in the Oval Office, sitting at the desk of the President of the United States. You telling me the United States is not hot? You have the entire European Union, at the White House, sitting in subjection with the President of the United States after he met with the other most powerful man in the world, and that's Vladimir Putin. So these conversations and all that, like I said, it's this country is lit right now. And like I said, I'm not a MAGA. I'm an American citizen who chases its history back to Jamestown, Virginia. And we're talking about the Smithsonian, and we're talking about God's people. But I got an issue with my own people, because if you did not know, yesterday was the 406-year anniversary of the first documentation of the transatlantic slave, and nobody's talking about it. I put a post out. I put 3 posts out just to see what would happen, and guess what happened? Shadow ban. Nobody commented. Nobody said anything. So let me know where you stand. And Black America, you got to get out of this Trump deranged syndrome and read between the lines. Because I'm gonna just read it one more time just to let you know how the game is, because I saw it on the Shade Room, I saw it on other outlets, and I saw people sharing this post. It says the museums throughout Washington, but all over the country, are essentially the last remaining woke segment of woke. So the liberals who control the slaves, the liberals who control the jigs, the liberals that control the Democrats, white supremacy, they are the ones who want to depict history. And if you did not know, it's the Democratic Party, it's the party of slavery, that's literally trying to make sure that there is no new history. And when I say no new history, I mean no black history. So we're not making black history, because slavery and all that goes into the African American Museum. Because if you did not know, we're not slaves. We haven't been slaves. We overcame. We've grown so much in the last 140, 150 years. They have to put in laws and legislation to stop our growth. 94 crime bills to basically lock us up, because they don't want us to not need them anymore. Because the transatlantic slave, the black African, the black American, is the fuel that allows the Democratic Party to exist. And now that we see that they're losing the slaves, now that we see that they're losing the so-called good Negro, okay, now they're investing in the migrants. Now I can clearly see why former Dixiecratic Democratic Southerners have flipped parties. The parties didn't change. Okay, the people changed, because right now it is so many black Americans that's moving over to the Republican Party because of the Democratic Party abandoning and turning its back on black Americans. Here in the state of California, we passed a reparations bill, okay, in the state legislature, but Stephen Bradford out of Gardena, okay, he basically decided not to put it on the governor's desk, because the governor told him he will veto it. And that governor is Gavin Newsom. So, and then we voted down to I believe it's Prop 6 to end, involuntary servitude. Same thing, because they want to keep, their power. They want to stay in control, and they want to continue to rule and reign, because after the Civil War, if there was no assassination of Abraham Lincoln, then we really wouldn't even be having a conversation about the Democratic Party. And I'm saying this, and I mean that. We will not be having a conversation about the Democratic Party because they will not exist. At the end of the Civil War, Robert E. Lee and the Dixiecratic Democratic Confederate Southerners, they came out with what they call the lost cause. But then, like a magic trick, okay, the federal government left the South, okay. Andrew Johnson allowed these individuals to take an oath, and they gave them their land back. Because if you did not know, 40 acres in a mule was a thing. It came out, individuals got their 40 acres in a mule, and this was during the war, because the Union invaded the South, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida. So those individuals who was, the tobacco and the oranges and was cultivating the land, they pretty much took over the plantations, and they utilized the agriculture, they utilized the livestock to basically feed the federal troops. But at the end of the Civil War, the landowners, the white slave masters went back, they cut a deal, and then they told the slave, okay, we'll let you share the crops. Okay, and when they shared the crops, they had the black codes. And while they were sharing the crops and had the black codes, we didn't even have a conversation, because the debate was, are we 3/5, or are we real? Because if you look at what's going on in the state of Texas right now, the Democrats leaving the state because of the redistricting and the redlining that's going on, and the term is gerrymandering that's going on. It was a time where the Southerners wanted to count their slaves as human, and the federal government they 3/5 because you got thousands of slaves on your plantation, and that's a proven fact. So now that the parties are switched, that theory, it has been totally debunked, because the people just switched the party. Just like black Americans are abandoning the Democratic Party right now, is how white Americans abandoned the Democratic Party then, okay? Because they start investing into the Negro, putting Negroes in power, allowing Negroes to get that shine. But we all know, without a shadow of a doubt, even in today's time, that the Negro can speak for himself. Yeah, boss, we sick. Yeah, think about that. So all these black elected officials, they're not speaking for themselves. They're speaking for the check writers. And Kamala Harris said that. I know there's voters and then there's check writers. Okay, because white supremacy is being preserved in the Democratic Party. The Republican Party saying, hey, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty, just for all. You can call them race, you call them what they want, but get your money up. Get your community to be thriving. Do something in your community to have us coming into your community and breaking bread with you. But the Democrats will do it right. They come on. Yeah, can we come on in? Can we be your friend? You need some funding? Can we help out? Okay. Because they want to preserve what they have. So now that we living in a time, man, we got to figure this thing out. And just like the black race, black men, Latino men are abandoning the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party has switched, have basically changed. Because like I said, the parties didn't switch. The Democratic Party, I would say, adjust. They make adjustments, because it was the party of slavery in this order. And then it changed into the party of civil rights. And then now it's the party of abortion, LGBTQ, and the immigrant. So now if you're not, down with, zero term limits when it comes to abortion, if you're not down with the LGBTQ, if you're not down with the immigration, then why do you even associate yourself with the party? Jasmine Crockett went on record over the weekend talking about that most black folk, have conservative values, and we do. So this is why our race is our grace, and this is why I do what I do. Because a better black America is a better America for all. And I created the acronym for Black America, which is Black, Latin, Asian, Caucasian, Kinsman, meaning we all is just one race. And that's the human race. And until America does right by the black race, till America cuts the check when it comes to that promissory note, then we can't have these conversations, because a house divided cannot stand. And I've got religious leaders and individuals that I respect I'm looking at their posts, and they're posting more politics than than their religion, or or messages from the church that they pastor. So now that this thing is over, this is a mass exodus, and yesterday we celebrated. We celebrated yesterday. I know it wasn't a big thing. The Smithsonian didn't, show us no love, but 406 years documented in the United States. And I had an individual, I have conversation with friends, and the fundamental Black Americans, they've been tapping in. So, put in the comments if I need to holler at them, because, my whole organization, my clothing line, Privileged People, 1619, Jamestown, Virginia. The first documentation of the transatlantic slaves. Yesterday was the anniversary. August 20th of the year 1619 was the first documented. So when you talk about African American, we got 4 centuries removed from the continent of Africa. And I got some African friends, and they say, I'm not African, Bouchon, I'm Nigerian. I'm not African, Bouchon, I'm from Ghana. I'm not African, I'm from Egypt, I'm Egyptian. Okay, I'm not African, I'm Ethiopian. So how is it the fact that they take this whole continent and put it on us? No, we're American, and by race I'm a Black American, a Negro, and there's only 3 races on this planet. That's that Negroid, that Caucasoid, and that Mongolian. And everybody done had that barbecue before. So just like this Trump deranged syndrome, we got all these brothers focused on Trump. What we doing, homie? What we doing, bruh? We gonna handle our business and do right by God's people and pick up the mantle and pick it up where Dr. King and the Black Panthers and all the civil rights leaders left off, because it was hijacked, and we're not going to allow the next move to be hijacked, because the 1619 got hijacked by Project 1619, which goes across Africa trying to include everybody that has nothing to do with being an American. Trying to include everybody that have not experienced this America. But I'm here to tell you right now, America is lit. For a Black man to be sitting here with a suit and tie on, with the American flag, having a conversation with you, that's freedom. That's success. That's wealth. But we want to sit back and just talk about the doom and gloom, and then just share a little snippet of conversation, because this is the real conversation. This is how the news play that game. They could change 1 or 2 words and everything turns. Because what President Trump said, the museums throughout Washington, but all over the country, are essentially the last remaining segment of woke, meaning this is the last thing that they own. And they basically try to depict it in their way, because they don't want us to be recognized in the future. So they just want to document us as slaves, and that's it. Not talk about any of the successes that we have had over the last 200, 160, or 10 years. Think about it. So the museums throughout Washington, but all over the country, are essentially the last remaining segment of woke. The Smithsonian is out of control. Okay, where everything discussed is how horrible our country is. America is not horrible. I'm sure some of you have been to third world countries. I've been to certain sections, in LA, and it looked like a third world country. Okay, I know individuals that been out the country and they came back south and never complained again. No running water, no sewer system. Okay, and want to act like this country is that bad. Only thing is bad is because of human error. Failed humans, and I gotta write that down. That's a good one right there. Human error. Failed and flawed humans. This is what the issue is, because I've never seen a ultra successful individual complain about anything other than give you a good word of advice. So think about it. But those failed humans, the MAGA don't like me. Okay, well, stay away from them. I can't make no money. Get educated, do what you need to do, get your bread up. First of all, pray and repent. God got this. But think about it. I'm gonna read this, and I'm gonna read it. Okay. Now, the museums throughout Washington, but all over the country, are essentially the last remaining segment of woke. The Smithsonian is out of control, where everything discusses how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was, and how accomplished and downtrodden have been. Think about it. We're not downtrodden anymore. This is freedom right here. I'm practicing my First Amendment right, freedom of speech. I'm doing my thing. I'm loving life, not in bondage, free mentally, spiritually. Okay. The next paragraph, nothing about success, nothing about brightness, nothing about the future. This is what we got to, this is the part that I need y'all to understand. We got to talk about the future. Okay. Because we got to make new Black American history, because we sitting back and letting them dictate and say, y'all just a bunch of slaves. 100 years from now, it's just a bunch of, no. We made it. We did it. And we, have become successful. We've contributed to this country. We built this country on free labor. And now this is our moment to separate from the Democratic Party and not align ourselves with the Republicans, but be the moderator between the two rivaling tribes and have these conversations and benefit from these gains when it comes to the stock market, when it comes to jobs, when it comes to socioeconomic advancement. This is what we got to do. Now, we are not going to allow this to happen. Trump has instructed his attorneys to go through the museums and start the exact same process they did with the colleges, because the colleges were programming. You what's your pronoun? I mean, come on, man. This DEI and all that. Let's stop it. This country cannot be woke, okay? Because woke is broke, and I agree with him. Woke is broke, because if you wasn't broke, you wouldn't be talking about none of this crap. You would be, an asset versus a liability. And that's real. Now, we are the hottest country in the world, and we want people to talk about it, including our museums. So I'm talking about it today. America is lit. Okay. You got to be lit when you're the president of the United States and you go have a private meeting in Alaska, with Vladimir Putin and talk about, ending the war. And then days later, the entire EU, including Zelensky, pull up to the White House in Washington just to have a conversation. That's a G right there. That's President Trump sitting right there with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The 9 members of the EU in the White House sitting with the president. So before I go, I thought about something and I said to myself, this country, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The only way it'll become that way if we sanctify ourselves, remove ourselves from the burning house, and allow it to do what it do. Because without the black man, you're not going to win. Okay. Because the last time the federal government had issues with state rights, they put the black man on. And now it's our opportunity to just basically make a decision whether we going to rock with them or not. Because as a black man, we got to figure this thing out. Okay, so in the state of California, Gavin Newsom won a war against Trump. Bass for that Bass, Mayor Bass of LA want to go against Trump and not put the, work together, with the federal troops and all of that. Then, this is when we tap out. Okay, because the states never, ever defeated the federal government. So if you were smart, play the game. Go talk to the president, go, lobby, have some cohesive conversations, work together. And that's how we win. But a house divided cannot stand. So we're going to just let you, write your own death certificate, because I've never seen the federal government in the history of America lose to the states ever. OK, and if they have, educate me. But, good luck on that. So what I decided to do, I wanted to see if America, I basically said to myself, they talking about Trump and the peace treaty, right? They talking about Trump and the peace treaty. So when they say he's deserving of a peace treaty, and I said to myself, why? And when they say America is lit, he said it. Okay, you could agree or disagree respectfully, but now let's go ahead and see what Trump is doing. Because I asked myself, from the peace treaty perspective, you got to be like Gandhi, you got to be like Nelson Mandela, you got to be like Dr. King, what I'm saying, having peaceful marches and, bringing the world together. And then I said to myself, man, how many wars have Trump ended since he's been in office? And I said, wow, if it's more than 3 or 4, that's well past the prerequisite of a peace, a Nobel Peace Prize. Okay. I've said peace tree, but I mean Nobel Peace Prize. So just for the haters, how many wars have President Trump ended? And this is the BBC. Okay. I can't go to MSNBC, and MSNBC, they're so, out of control. NBC said, we don't want you no more. So moving forward, NBC has separated, and now you left with minstrel cycle or minstrel show. I don't know, whichever one it is. But we'll talk about that on another one. So let me just keep it 100. So this is breaking news. So this is basically came out today. Actually, matter of fact, no, it commemorated the 400-year biblical curse on August 20th, the year 1619, because that prophecy is in the Bible, but you're going to have to hit that notification to get that other information. So how many wars have Trump ended in closing? And some people will say none. He hasn't done anything. Okay. Israel and Iran. Okay. Israel and Iran. On the 23rd of June, Trump officially, started a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. And Lord knows how long they've been warring. That's one. Israel and Iran. That's one. How many wars have Trump ended? Number 2, Pakistan and India. Tensions between the two nuclear armed countries. After 4 days of strike, Trump says that India and Pakistan agreed to a full immediate ceasefire. So Trump got Pakistan and India to agree to a full ceasefire. Wow, that's 2. Oh man, the truth shall make you free. I don't know what the mainstream media gonna do about this. All they're gonna do is block it, shadow ban. We know what they do. Okay, number 3, Rwanda and Congo. Wow, he did that back in June. Rwanda and Congo been fighting for 30 years, and Trump ended that war. Okay, they signed a peace agreement in Washington. He had them pull up, sign a peace agreement, and shake hands. Here's another one. Thailand and Cambodia. On July 26th, the Prime Minister of Thailand right now requested a ceasefire and the end of the war to this current day. That's 4. Armenia and Azerbaijan, and I'm not sure how that's pronounced. Okay, but there they are in the frame, shaking hands. Okay, and that's Armenia and Azerbaijan. Okay, shaking hands. Look, Trump got their hands together. You see it back there in the frame. Here's another one. Egypt and Ethiopia. War ended in Serbia and Kosovo. This man done ended 6 wars since he's been in office. He's almost averaging a war a month. So that's I'm going on record right now. He's going to get the Nobel Peace Prize. Okay, because you might not like him, but I'm sure this country's loving him right now. Because like I said, it's get down to lay down. Okay, remember Joy Reid? Okay, remember MSNBC? Stephen Colbert and The Late Show? These individuals have lost their jobs, their career jobs, just by being haters. And the crazy thing about it is that these networks could care less. Okay, they could care less because they want you to be, to be hot, to be trending on these topics, to get people to watch. But then when the job is done, you're just collateral damage because we're going to cut your salary because he just sued us for 16 million and you make 16 million a year. Okay. And the crazy thing about it is after they got rid of Joy Reid, then, the ratings went down. More people get their news from social media. And then when you look at, this MSNBC as a whole, I thought MSNBC was a part of NBC. Okay. But it was an agreement to allow them to have a liberal news outlet since, CNN and other liberal stations, had high numbers. So all of a sudden, NBC decided to part ways with MS. That's crazy. So all I'm saying is, listen, man, it's time to really, have a conversation. It's time to focus. It's time to create new history. We don't have to just focus on slavery. You don't have to keep reminding us and beating us in the head about slavery. I've never been a slave. I've never even been segregated upon. I've been called the N-word, but, I got the swinging. But I really never felt that because of the time that I've grew up in. I know individuals from the South experienced it. It is what it is. But, we need to stop, making it seem like that's the end all end. OK, we've had great gains in the last 100 years. We have great gains in the last 60 years. We've had great gains in the last 10 years. But if you pay attention, as long as we continue to associate ourselves, with the party of slavery. And when people say the party switched, there's no way you can get citrus from fiber, meaning an orange will never turn into an apple. The root is the root. What the party did was it just evolves. It adjusts. Because just like now, there's a mass exodus of the Democratic Party because of its immigration stance, giving them paychecks and, having protests and suing the federal government. They never did that for black folk. Ever. So now let's really have this conversation. So now you can understand why the white Southerner said, you know what, I'm going to go Republican now because, they're investing into the nigger. Okay, so just like they said that, the black men and women are saying, I'm flipping Republican because they're investing in the migrant. They're invested in the LGBTQ. They want our boys to be girls. They want to trans everything. And you wonder why they want to associate themselves with trans, because they want to transform their party into something that it is today and hide the fact of what it used to be yesterday. So when individuals sit back and say, oh, the party switched, that has been 100% completely debunked. The people just changed parties because of the focus of the particular political party. When after desegregation, okay, after the civil rights bills was signed, okay, after the Voting Rights Act, now you are investing in blacks because you want to control them. And that's exactly what they did. So white people moved to Republican. And right now, they're investing in the migrant, okay, and black men, black conservatives who've been lifelong Democrats are going independent, and some even going full-blown MAGA, in which I can't, because describing the Pharisees, there's no difference. Because when, the religious leaders came up in my community, talking about, oh, vote for the lesser of the two evils between Clinton and Trump. It's the lesser of the two evils, Brother Sean. Okay, well, to my understanding, it's no such thing. That theory has been completely debunked because there's no difference between Lucifer and Satan. So with that being said, man, hit that like, hit that notification. As you can see, we moving on. We doing big things, man. And thank you for tuning in to A Better Black America TV on YouTube. This is your man, Bushan Glover, signing out. Peace.